Good afternoon. I'm Carl Garth, and welcome to our latest edition of the Champion Chat with Counsellor Alison Champion. Good afternoon, Alison. How are you today?
Hi, Carl. I'm fantastic as usual. Happy to be here. Thank you for asking.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, it's certainly been quite a week in Melbourne, Alison.
Yeah.
Some very turbulent, even scary activity across the area. Have you been across everything that's been happening? And if so, do you have a bit of a view on how we've arrived at this point?
I'm across a few things. Are you talking about the earthquake?
Well, there's been the earthquake, absolutely. Quite a little bit of civil unrest too.
There has been civil unrest. Do you know what? I was on the phone to a client yesterday. We were having a long chat. We haven't caught up for a while. And she said something which I think nailed it. She said, I reckon we're in an episode of The Truman Show. I'm just expecting that there's someone watching us and going, oh, well, see, let's do this and we'll see what happens. And let's do this and we'll see what happens. Wow, who'd have thought?
So what we're really saying is we've got the ultimate Big Brother happening. Someone's looking down. Oh, we'll just give them a bit of an earthquake, see what that does.
Yeah.
Have a bit of civil unrest. Now let's see.
So I think she actually nailed it. But aside from that, I get that you're sort of really referring to the construction worker protests that have been going on this week, which suddenly happened. They were triggered. They were triggered by a decision that was made by our Premier. And my understanding is that it seemed to come out of the blue and wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I like to read a lot about leadership techniques, and one of the things that really resonates with me is the view that leadership stems from social influence, not authority or power, and that it's about getting people to follow you and take your lead to achieve an intended outcome or goal, or in other words, the vision. Mm-hmm. And with that in mind, do you see a dearth in our current elected officials in providing this style of leadership?
Mm-hmm.
This ability to collaborate and get people to come with them.
Mm-hmm. I have to admit, I just looked up the word dearth to make sure that I understood what it meant, what you were saying. So I understand you're talking about, is there a scarcity or a lack in leadership at the moment? Yeah. I am seeing it from some people that have been either elected or in any or a position, just in a position with a title of some kind of management or leadership. I remember last year writing. I was given a diary, and look, I don't really journal really, but every now and then I might write something down. Most of it's up here, and I remember writing down in sometime last year while I was mayor, I remember just being inspired to sit down and write down what leadership is for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it, and I actually wrote it on Monday, the 1st of June. And it was at a time, I was trying to think what triggered that. And I know it was at a time when I, as the mayor, we were in, I don't know if conversation is the right word, it's probably not, but we were dealing with, and the deputy mayor as well, and we were dealing with the North East Link project, and there was some unrest for a variety of reasons. And there was frustration coming out. I felt frustration. I felt like there's no collaboration here. There's no listening. There's no communication. And this is from our leaders. These are our elected leaders. And I ended up writing on this particular night, I wrote this, and it's something that came to me that I've come over the years to appreciate just in the last few years. I've said this a few times now. Leadership is a human quality. It can be taught and it can be learned. It can be rejected and it can be embraced. It is not a title. It is not words on a footer in an email or on a business card. It is not a badge or a colour. It is not a gender or a nationality or a language or an educational qualification or a job description. Leadership is a way of being. It recognises cohesion collaboration, innovation, and it supports growth, development, and vision. It does not discriminate or reject. Above all, leadership inspires. It is always encouraging humanity to be the best, most powerful version of itself. And so with that, I do reflect on what actions not only our elected leaders take, but also might say my directors at work and other leaders in our communities, like our sport coaches, for example, and managers. And I look at them and their roles and I go, how are you being a leader? And right now, I am seeing scarcity in leadership from those we've elected. And it is a worry that we have communities now that are angry. And it's not just from the protests this week. That's become the tipping point. Yep. This has been leading up, especially in this lockdown since the start of August. There have been 7 or 8 weeks of hard lockdown, same time as last year, this time last year. And what I'm getting from all the conversations I have with people, whether it's clients of mine or whether it's community members, residents, neighbours, management, there is anger and frustration and sadness. There is a sense of hopelessness. And I can't speak for my fellow councillors, but I've been receiving phone calls and emails from my residents just wanting to reach out to speak with someone else whom they see as a leader, because they're not getting it from other leaders that they're expecting.
Which is interesting, because I mean, we can't really look at these people and say that they've never had leadership capabilities, because to have even gotten where they are, they must have exhibited some sort of leadership capability. So what is it? What's actually happening that seems to be inhibiting these people being the leaders that they could or should be? And another question to sort of follow on with that is does modern media and the way things are reported and shown have a bit of a responsibility in how leadership is being shaped?
Very possibly. I always say leadership, I always say everything comes from the top. Everything. And it can be in a household or it can be in a government level. It's in an organisation. Everything comes from the top, and the human being that is sitting at the top, their way of being filters through. Okay. Now, one's way of being might change, or over time, there are things about that way of being that come out. And when we look at who is sitting as a CEO somewhere, or who is sitting as the mayor or the premier or the prime minister, what type of human being are they? That filters down through the organisation. And then when you include something like media as well, now media has its own agenda. And we really came to appreciate that just at a very local level a few years ago, when the local paper was being produced, when I was first elected on council. And we know that on a Monday night in chamber, over in the corner was one of the reporters from the local paper. And we would read, on the Wednesday or Thursday when the paper was delivered, something about a decision that was made in council or how the council chamber functioned. And we used to read that and go, oh my God, that's not what happened. were they in the same place? What's going on there? And we actually learned that the editor of the local paper at the time was giving an instruction to the reporter that they had to report on an angle in this way to make it look like Banyule Council can't be trusted, Banyule Council isn't cohesive, Banyule Council doesn't know what it's doing, Banyule Council isn't collaborative. All of that was supposed to be represented to the community who reads the local paper as an instruction from the editor. There was an agenda. And that's when I really came to appreciate our media. And you know what, I'm going to get fallout from this, and that's fine. I'm okay with it. After Monday night's meeting, I can cope with some more fallout. I don't believe that our media is, what's the word I'm after? Subjective. I really believe that there is an agenda, and the agenda must be followed to the detriment of the truth.
Yeah.
And if we take these protests, for example, I'll tell you now, I have not watched any of the media reporting on the protests. What I have watched is 2 videos ongoing that have been taken by people in the street who are just walking around with their camera and showing us what's happening and what's being said. And there's nothing filtered. There is swearing. There are obscene gestures. There's anger. You're getting it raw. And that's the reality of what is happening for this particular situation. It is not filtered. It is not chopped. It is the truth. And I don't think we get it from our media, and our media, and I'm going to include social media as well, can modify, change, misrepresent the reality.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. So let's delve into that a little bit more, because I wondered, do you feel that politics and social discourse has become more divisive, more oppositional? And we no longer look to win people over through logic, but it's almost like we're now adopting bully boy tactics such as intimidation, physical threat. And it's not just one side, it's each side. It's almost like if you're not with us, you're against us. And then we have to use our resources not to collaborate and find a compromise with you, but to actually subjugate you to our way of working or thinking.
I'm not sure about whether we're divisive or oppositional any more now than we ever have been in the past. What I think is the resources we have to publicise that are more. We have more of that now. And I've got to go into social media. Social media is really an amazing resource. The internet, your Facebook and your Twitter, an amazing resource to get messages across. And it doesn't discriminate between ages or genders or anything. This is social media, and you use it however you choose. And the only thing that really goes to shut you down is maybe the administrator on a certain site. All right. So the thing is, though, what is missing is the personal responsibility of A, what is written, posted, and B, the fallout of it. And what I think is missing is the thought in each individual's head. If I post this, how is someone I have never met before, how is it going to impact them? And while I might believe this, and for me it is true, pressing post, what is missing is, what am I going to get back, and what does that do for somebody else that I don't know, never met, and for their networks and what goes on for them.
And look, I understand where you're coming from there. And as long as we're sort of having that discourse, that would be okay. But I watched a video of the latest council meeting, and certain people wanted their submissions to council to be anonymous because they've received threats. Now, that's stepping over the line of discourse and argument, and now you're into the realm of physically trying to change somebody's mind. That's not democratic. It's not collaborative. Okay, it's, you know, for want of a better term. Sorry,
not. I just say not. It's not.
Okay, let's say it's not. But you know, how do we get to this point where people are now overreacting and feel that they have to do something physical or threaten physicality?
Yeah. I reckon, I really think that comes from a desperation and a fear of loss. I think it comes from a fear that their familiarity is being threatened. It's being taken away. That's their power. Familiarity is power. Comfort for people is power, and that's being taken away potentially by someone else or something else that's beyond their control. And so, yes, these people can put an argument forward, whether it's misinformation or whether it's truth or whatever. They put through an argument, put across an argument again and again and again. And someone else has a logical comeback that is the opposite. That logical comeback from someone is again another threat to them, and they get defensive. Okay, now you mentioned the council meeting on Monday night. The item you're referring to is the sale of land in Rosanna, which is leading to the Rosanna Library rebuild. The Woolworths partnership. Yep, so it's a private partnership. Now, for some people, that's strategic and that's innovative, and for others, that's just, you just don't do that. And that's against policy.
I really don't want to sidetrack this one with.
No, but you're coming into the people who their reaction and how it's impacted them and their world. So what came up from the meeting was exactly that, some undemocratic action. And there was genuine fear by some of our residents that they were being vilified. And their personal safety was being threatened. It was being threatened.
Yeah.
And we don't want that.
No, and this is my point. Regardless of a decision, regardless of a proposal, everybody should be allowed to have their say.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a democracy. Exactly.
Without fear and without retribution, fear of retribution. Now, please.
No, I was going to say, and that's why I called it out on Monday night. And I actually called out two things on Monday night, and they both had, there's been response from both of them. But for me, it wasn't the item. The item wasn't, the argument about for or against the recommendation of the item was not the issue. And some of us spoke on that. And I thought there's something else here that is incredibly important and significant to our communities in Banyule and anywhere else, that doesn't sit with me and is very, very different from other items.
Yep.
And I wanted to share with our communities, the public, these are some things that we deal with that you don't know about and you don't hear about. And I want you to know what's going on for others, your neighbours and others in the community. And this particular item has led to the creation of fear, angst, and personal safety and I don't want that for any of us, and neither do we. All councillors want everyone to be safe. And that's what we have done as a councillor group. We've created a safe place for each of us to express what we believe. And it is okay. Now, we want that for our communities.
Okay.
And so I've made the decision. I'm going to call out this bad behaviour. So
you've seen the rise of fear. Your view is to obviously call it out, to bring it to light. And how else do you think we can actually combat these tactics, though, without buying into the divisive nature of them? Because some people might see that call out as you're only calling me out because you have an agenda. And again, what we really want to put a light on here is that respectfulness, safety, as you said, should be paramount. So again, what do you think are some of the things, and can you give me some examples of Banyule City Council of what they're doing to try and make it a safe place for people to be able to have that discourse?
Okay. I said everything comes from the top. Okay. When I'm going to go back to November last year, when we were elected as a councillor group of 9, as the outgoing mayor and the outgoing deputy mayor, Councillor Rick and I had a conversation around how do we make this a really safe place for every one of us as councillors? How do we allow for the next 4 years at the very least of freedom to speak freely and safely, using our knowledge and our skills to address all our items? Because there are 9 of us now and a lot of us are strangers. So I said to Councillor Rick, well, what about if, soon after we're declared, or, the results are declared, why don't we just all catch up as a councillor group down in the park somewhere? Pick a park, go there, have a coffee and just have a chat. And let's address who we are, where we're from, why we ran, and what we like, what we want to see for Banyule. And he's agreed. And that's what we did. So we put together and I just emailed all our new councillors and just said, we're coming to the park, please come to the park. We all want to meet and have a conversation, have a chat about what's important for you. And we all did. And you know what? Our families came, the kids came. We got lots of kids in our councillor group from like 20 years old to bubbers. So we did that and it was perfect, because now we are in some very interesting conversations and we are divided amongst some things, and we know that, and it's okay. So we've created this space that it is okay for everyone to not agree or agree, and it's fine. And we actually learn from each other. Okay. So we welcome whatever anybody has to say, because we might learn, it might add to an argument. That's what we've done. Our CEO, Alison Champion, is of the same mindset. All right. And that filters down through our conversations every week. It filters down through, I'd like to think it comes out through our meetings. Another thing too is we are governed by the Local Government Act 2020, and it's a bit stringent now compared with the last act. And so we certainly have our governance team is really important to have by our side to ensure that we make decisions that are within the realm of the Local Government Act. Now that might lead to something that appears staged or a decision that's brief and can't be explained well. However, we are governed by the Local Government Act and we are there to abide by it, and it is for the safety and the authenticity of us as leaders in our communities. Okay, so there's that. We do encourage our community to speak with us. All right, it's private. It's not something that's public. If people want to call us and have a conversation with us about any of the topics, anything at all, they are welcome to do that. So we allow for a space that is free to speak. I personally encourage all of our residents to please participate in a project or a solution. And I really want to hear what people have to say, because we all live here. We all love where we live, and we all have certain little visions, and we want to hear them.
Yep.
And what is really important too is that we all have skills and knowledge from our workplaces and our own qualifications, etc., and our lives that we can contribute. And if we allow for every resident to contribute to their home, we have a very powerful environment where anything can be achieved safely, in a pleasant way, collaboratively, and it's easy.
I mean, when I hear you talk like that, you can, we're seeing a local government, and then we're seeing a state government. And we're really, we're seeing a real lack of that consultation and a lack of that engagement. We've seen it with the level crossings. We've seen it this week around vaccinations, closing of construction industries, even over the last 18 months with some of the decisions that have been taken. And then I also hear about two levels of government that are just really not working together, to the point where state is almost overriding anything that local government has to say.
Yeah.
How, I know it must be difficult to try and get your point across to the state to represent your local government. What are some of the things that you're finding are inhibiting that at the moment?
Okay. You hit the nail on the head. There are things this year, at least, that, if not before, that the state government has legislated for in Parliament that do not allow for the connection between local government and state government. So this government has legislated against communication with local government for any of its projects going into the future. State rail loop, right? The rail loop that's, in a conversation now that's due to, project for a few years' time. The North East Link project, rail duplication project.
It's interesting. Some people might look at that sort of legislation and go, well, this is a state government that doesn't want to be mired in red tape and meetings for the sake of meetings. But other people might say we're skirting very close there to a totalitarian level of government. And I sort of got to look at that with what you've just said and look between the two differences there and go, at what point do we pass that middle ground? Have we passed it? Are we now, when we're legislating that, have we passed the compromise and we're now in command style leadership, not true leadership?
I probably don't need to add to that, Carl. You just said it.
Okay.
However, I will say this: you are right. That is how it is perceived now.
Well, let me ask you this: you are a local government official. Do you feel as though you are communicated with, or do you feel like you are talked to or talked at when you have your discussions with state government?
We're told. We're talked to and we're talked at. And the community feels that way too. I have residents, so I know you see this on my Facebook page and in our emails that come through. Residents use words, I've read residents use words like socialism. That's not democracy. I know what's going on in my community through, with regards to state projects, through my residents. My residents are telling me what's going on because I'm not getting anything as a local councillor from the state itself, from the positions, the local positions, politicians in their positions. We're bypassed. Wow. Local leadership is bypassed. And our community has kept in touch with me about what's been happening. Our officers sign confidentiality agreements. I learned not long ago. So earlier this year, I started talking about confidentiality agreements. I was learning that that's what our officers are signing. It's not just Banyule, by the way. This is all local council. Okay, and so officers are signing confidentiality agreements, and that means our officers can speak with project representatives like LXRP, Level Crossing Removal Project, or the Major Roads Projects Victoria, those representatives, those bodies. So our officers could speak directly with them and interact with them and provide technical information. But we can't as councillors. And there are things that our officers know about projects, state projects, that they cannot share with us as councillors, as leaders in the community. And yet we're meant to represent an organisation that knows a lot and can share with our communities. But I actually find it coming back the other way. My community members, my residents actually tell me what's going on because the information is available for them. It's not for me as a councillor.
So how can we have honesty, transparency and trust in our governments if we're going to compartmentalise information like that and actually restrict people's knowledge?
Yeah, so right now we can't. However, I said everything comes from the top.
Yeah.
Okay, everything comes from the top because the human being sitting at the top in any organisation, their way of being filters down.
Okay.
All right, so with a leader, we're talking about leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership is not up here. Leadership is out here. So if we have an elected representative anywhere that is all up here and all in here and thinking, how is this benefiting me? They're not here and encouraging all the residents to be on board with an idea or a vision or a plan that benefits everybody.
Okay. We have state and federal MPs that cover at the city of Banyule. How would you describe the city of Banyule's relationship with those state and federal MPs that are supposed to be representing this same LGA?
Yeah. Some of us as we actually had, on a personal level, pleasant. It's pleasant, approachable. I think Councillor Rick probably connects really well with our local MP, Colin Brooks. He seems to connect very well with him. I get on reasonably well with Vicky Ward. We catch up, you know, we have things in common. What I get from having been in meetings and conversations with them, with our local MPs, so there are three of them. Ivanhoe is Anthony Carbines, Colin Brooks is Bundoora, and then Vicky Ward is Eltham. So they're all across Banyule. As pleasant as our conversations are, I get that they're not in as powerful position as they should be.
So,
and not as powerful decision-making position as they should be and could be.
So what you're telling me is that our locally elected officials are not, that relationship between local and state is actually broken because they're actually not empowered or enabled to take the views of local back to state, and that it's almost like they're a rubber stamp.
Now, I believe that they hear us. and understand us because they're part of these communities. I believe that.
Yep.
I believe they do have our best interest at heart and the community's best interest at heart. I really, really do. However, what I also believe is that, use the expression rubber stamped, I really believe that they're in a position where they are, their visions for the communities and what they hear from the communities, I don't believe is getting through to the next level.
So potentially they're not being listened to themselves.
Correct.
Okay.
That's how it is, or that's how we see it here. That may be incorrect. However, that is what we're getting at our end.
Yep.
And I receive many, 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 many emails from my very active local residents, certainly around the Fitzsimons Lane roundabout project, and I can say roundabout, it's still a roundabout, and the rail duplication project, which has been ever changing. Certainly in the last 12 months, there have been lots of journeys with that one. That's a bit different, no pun intended, journey. My inbox has a lot of emails that I'm CC'd into now.
Yep.
They used to be directed to me, and it's Alison, do this, and then we worked out Alison doesn't have, unfortunately, as much opportunity as she should in this environment. So now I'm CC'd in, and now my residents are including me in conversations or questions. There are lots and lots of questions that they want answered. And they're actually writing to our local members, in this case, Vicky Ward, and they're writing to Jacinta Allen, Minister for Transport, and they're writing to the opposition, the shadow ministers. So, you know, David Davis, Bruce Atkinson, Minister Bach, and so on. And they're being included. And the media is now being included as well, by the way, because my residents are at a point where they have never been included in these projects with their knowledge and information that they can provide, and they've got to, you know, they know the area so well, and their questions aren't being answered, and they're frustrated. And so we've got this frustration of, please give me answers to these projects. It's not logical. You're just copy pasting script. We live here. These are our homes, and you're not including us? Why? How dare you?
Don't give us the party line. Give us something real and tangible. Yeah.
All our residents want to do is be included in the conversations.
Yeah.
And they're not.
I must admit, Alison, this has not been one of our normal chats.
It hasn't, has it?
No, it's definitely thought-provoking. And for anybody who's watching this podcast, I'd really be interested in seeing how some of our audience out there would respond, and their views on what they're currently seeing in society. Do they feel they're being listened to? How they think leadership in this state is currently running, and locally. So if you are watching this, please leave a comment. I'm sure Alison would love to hear from people what they're feeling, how they're feeling in our lovely city. Yeah,
please do. Oh, please do. And obviously, as you're aware, when you do comment, I do respond. So yeah, feel free. And obviously, people are welcome. You're welcome to give me a call. I mean, my phone number's there. You give me a call, we can have a chat. Some residents are also emailing me as well, and just asking, Alison, you said this. What do you mean by that? Can you explain that a bit more? And that's certainly been happening since Monday. So yeah, always happy to hear what people have to say. And I'm very aware that there are those of you who don't agree with council, or you don't agree with me personally. And then there are those of you who do. I'm also aware some of you really like me. I'm also aware some of you really hate me, and that's okay too. And you can still comment.
I don't think any elected official has ever had 100% popularity. But no. All right, well, look, Alison, thank you very much for your time today. And thank you all for listening to this podcast. And join us next time on the Champion Chat, where we'll be discussing electric vehicles and the infrastructure within Banyule.
Sounds
Alison?
like a plan.
Absolutely. Hopefully there is one. Alison, thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, Carl. Always a pleasure. Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.